How do we feel? Because I don't know. Hello, lovelies. My name is Wendy Weather, the History Drag Queen, and welcome back to Spooky History, where this season we are talking all things horror or horrific in nature. Two housekeeping things. I did try a new mug today, so if I look different in the last couple episodes of Spooky History this year, that's why. I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see. Second thing, we have a new addition to the backdrop. This right here, this is Douglas.
I see you.
He sees us, he sees you, we see each other. Now that that's out of the way, this episode we are going to be discussing some of the most historically horrifying history facts. Throughout this season, we have talked about the origins of horror, horror storytellers, and even horror cinema. Well, history is no different. There is horrifying things that happen in history. Actually, this episode was originally going to be the top 10 most horrific events in history. And then me realizing I really didn't want to talk about very depressing, horrible, horrific things like slavery, genocide, things like that for like an hour and a half. I don't want to do that. That is, on my psyche, that wouldn't be great. And also, you watching would probably make you depressy. I'm not about to do that. Over the years, I have gathered some very kind of jarring and like kind of horrifying history facts. So, let's get right into them. A little throwback to, I believe, Spooky History Season 2. Did you know that us as, a culture and human creatures used to eat each other for medicine? Mostly not shocking in the Victorian era, there used to be mummy unwrapping parties. Well, what, Miss Weather, what is that? Well, children and lovelies, that is when people would gather to unwrap mummies and pretty much like grind them in medicine and eat them. Oh, so fun! Ew! Before modern medicine was really fleshed out, it was the belief that if you were ill, eating the body part of someone else of the thing that you were ill of, so like, let's say you had heart problems. Well, if you ate somebody's heart, that would help you. I don't know about that. Victorians would also stir ground up mummy remains and people into hot chocolate. That is also the reason why we don't know where a lot of mummies are and why people are excavating like, pyramids and things like that and crypts and tombs in Egypt, and they're like, oh, this is just an empty tomb. It's because it was already taken by random Victorian people. Yeah. Another thing about the Victorian era, they used to do a thing called death photography. What is that, you may ask? Let me tell you. So death photography was when you had a relative pass away. That was pretty much the time to take their picture because camera technology back then, if you moved or even the slightest inch, it would mess up the photo and it would take like 20 minutes. You would have to sit still for a photo. And during this time, there is a lot of death photography of like kids and minors, mostly because kids usually, can't really sit still. And so when a child would pass away, that is whenever they would actually have their photo taken. So there's tons. If you've seen a Victorian photograph or like a portrait, it's about a good 80% chance it's a dead person. It's not great. Fun fact, when I was doing some genealogical research, I actually stumbled upon a death portrait of one of my great-grandmothers. It was very eerie. Don't recommend. And no, I am not going to post it here or anywhere here because one, it's disrespectful, and two, I don't want you to see that. Like that's a Google on your own type of situation. Another kind of horrifying history fact is, did you know fake teeth weren't fake? So before modern dentistry and, we have fake dentures and like inserts, well, way back then, a couple centuries ago, they actually made dentures using human teeth of dead people or unwilling participants. Yeah. So let's say it's like 1780 and like you bit an apple and half your teeth fell out, which was, a common occurrence back then. You need dentures. But they're expensive. Because sometimes they use ivory, and ivory is expensive at the time, and it was just very expensive for random people like me and you to be buying dentures in the 1780s, you know what I mean? But they were like, oh my gosh, we have all of these dead people, mostly from the Revolutionary War. They just have teeth in their head. Let's just take those and put them in dentures and give them to people. Yay, so smart. Eco-friendly. Well, sometimes, they would be like, oh, there's no dead bodies left because we took all their teeth. Okay, we'll take the teeth of, people who are enslaved. So not only would they be using the teeth of dead soldiers, they would also be using the teeth of very much alive slave peoples. Yeah, so if you see an old pair of dentures in a museum, it's probably for the fact that, oh, we're showing that this is actually real human teeth they moved into dentures, most likely from a slave or a dead person. So, fun fact, if you donate your body to science after you pass away, I'm pretty sure there is a very small possibility after, the medical students are done with you, they actually take out your teeth and give it to, dental students and hygienists and things. One, that's kind of, crazy, but also, that's how they would need to learn by working on real teeth like that. Makes sense. Did you know in the 1930s in London, they locked up children in baby cages? In the 1930s, air was not very, great to be inhaling, especially for children in London area. So they made baby cages, which looked like this. The convenience of a baby cage, you don't need extra space in the house. You just hang it outside a window like an AC unit. And it was very popular for people who lived in high rises and multi-story apartments. I'm gonna give you 4 seconds to figure out why these don't exist no more. Yeah, these next two history stories and facts are kind of the horrific of the episode. I will warn you right now. The next story is actually the story of the Radium Girls. If you don't know what the Radium Girls are, let me tell you really fast. So, in the 1920s, there was a man who made a different type of paint that was called Undark. It was called Undark because it was glow in the dark. One of the first things of its kind. Things that, glow in the dark to help, people see things better. And also, it, doesn't cost electricity, coal, burning of a candle, anything like that. What a great invention. Ooh, but unfortunately that paint was made with radium, which was radioactive and incredibly lethal and deadly. But they still were using it to paint on objects like watches. And mostly the people that were painting these watches with this undark paint were very young women trying to make money for themselves. Or mothers and families just trying to make ends meet. They're just trying to have a job, have some income. Well, these women would literally be painting with this radium paint every day. And the women were instructed by the creators and producers of the paint to lick their paintbrushes to get the finest point, because you don't want to mess up that watch. Oh, don't mess it up. You're like, all right. Well, these women are licking this radium paint, which glows in the dark. And so, of course, these girls, young girls and moms and mothers, would be like, oh, it's so fun, this glow-in-the-dark paint, oh, so cute. They would actually, line their lips with it, make little drawings on their faces, because it's fun glow-in-the-dark paint. Well, not long after, some of these women and young girls start developing radiation poisoning and like radium poisoning, and not great. Like literally one of the side effects of severe radiation poisoning is your spine literally just crumbles under your own weight, and like your bones literally just like all of a sudden, like it's bad. And to this day, the bodies of those young girls, women, and moms are highly irradiated. If you go to their graves, some of their graves actually have to be like lead lined, like really like heavily, because their bodies are immensely irradiated. Ugh. Did these girls get justice? No. Did the corporation get in trouble? Not really. They just stopped making that paint and like, you know, using it. So, yeah. Lastly, could you imagine your last seconds of life are imprinted on the earth? Physically imprinted on the earth. In the wake of World War II in 1945, America actually drops the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And one of the outcomes of that was these Hiroshima shadows, which are these physical imprints of people and objects and things, and their shadows, literally, that were left behind. Because those individuals and things were pretty much Thanos snapped, to make a modern analogy. There was no physical remains left of them at all. Their ashes were even just in the ether. Like, and what was left behind is the imprint of themselves at that point in time. And the reason why those shadows actually occurred, it's actually kind of interesting. It's kind of like a photographic effect. When there is a void standing in between a object of light and, let's say, a solid object like a wall, it actually can develop on the wall itself. Pretty much taking a shadow picture of the void that was there. And with that, that is the end of today's episode, lovelies. Do you guys have a favorite horrifying history fact? Put it in the comments below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stick around because you might learn something of nasty in the air. And they were...
Behold my spectral grin.
Douglas, that was rude.